auteurs et autoritas. I am a city clergyman, and this is the Wold Newton Reading Extravaganza, special ReaderCon edition of Awesomeness.
Woo!
Thank you. Now, right here on this stage, we are about to create art, just for all you sexy people. That's right. Now, there are some people who will tell you that science fiction and fantasy cannot be art with a capital A. To those people I say, Isaac Asimov is as great an artist as Jerry Lewis. That's right, I said it. That's right. Or to quote the great French philosopher Michel Foucault, j'aime la crème glacée en Italie. If you don't know what that means, it's okay. It's Foucault. Nobody knows what it means. Now, over here is a band led by Brian Francis Laughlin.
Yay!
Yes. He's the author of Spaceman Blues and Liberation, which you can buy over in the buying place over there. And he and his amazing band will play music. And while they play music, we will have our readers come up one at a time while I ring the gong. The readers would be Myke, author of Control Points, Jeffrey Ford, author of The Drowned Life, Scott Edelman, author of What We Still Talk About, Theodora Goss, author of In the Forest of Forgetting, John Kessel, author of The Bon Plan for Financial Independence, and Matt Cheney, author of The Art of Comedy. Yes. And now, are we ready for art?
Yeah!
Then let us begin!
Stormcraft is the keystone of the aromantic arsenal. To properly harness it, the sorcerer must understand the electrostatic relationship between colliding ice particles and be sensitive to the electric fields they generate in moist air. A number of elements, temperature, moisture level, particle size, and wind strength, all must be manipulated in perfect synchronicity to harness lightning to combat effective levels. This sounds complicated, and it is, but by the time you graduate this course, you will be able to do it while airborne, tracking multiple targets, and without a second thought. From the introduction to Stormcraft 1, Offensive Aeromantic Maneuver, publication of the Supernatural Operation Corps. Chapter 11, Hot LZ. The striker rocked on the uneven track. Britain could hear the dull booming of explosions and the staccato rhythm of the machine gun despite the armored hull. And something more, the rush of wind and the crack of lightning, far louder and closer than any lightning should have been. He heard banging on the hull and a muttered conversation as the gunner ceased firing. A moment later, he called down into the squad bay. "They cut the road, sir. Rotary wing's the only way to the forward operating base. Black Hawk's spinning up on the pad right now." Harlequin cursed and jerked a thumb at Britain. "Close detail on our guest here. Anything happens to him between here and the helo, you'll wish it had happened to you. Rampart, you don't run suppression, I have to, so keep yourself out of the fight. Dampener or no dampener, I'm not taking any chances. You keep this flow blocked. Oscar, keep your head down and go where I damn well tell you. On deck!" The hatch dropped and the dawn flooded over them. Even the half-light was dazzling, the rough cloud glittering in bits of crushed rock. The air had the same intense sulphur smell, now tainted with other odors, all strengthened by the source's heightened sense of things. Gasoline, cordite, ozone, blood. A Black Hawk helicopter stood 30 feet across from them, rotors spinning. The gunner stood in the open door behind the whirling barrels of the minigun, its blurred muzzles blazing, spitting a stream of rounds into the distance. The scream of the motor and the clatter of casings on the cracked concrete pad were loud enough to hear over the beating rotors, swirling up enough dust that Britain jerked his sunglasses over his eyes as the escort lowered the goggles on their helmets. They stumbled down the ramp. Harlequin leapt out of the hatch, rocketing airborne. The dust whipped up by the Black Hawk's rotors whirled around him, his magic gathering into a funnel. The sunglasses were too dark in the early light, so Britain slipped them back onto his cap rim, taking advantage of Harlequin's drawing off of the dust. He caught his breath. Over Harlequin's shoulder, Britain could see a massive bird banging towards him. Its brown feathers were flecked with gold, black beak opened wide enough to swallow a car. A model bird's nest of ropes was strapped between its wings. "Move, damn it!" Rampart said, shoving him hard. The escort pushed across the perennial saw-edged grass, withered and burned in patches, making for the helo. A A long line of concrete glass barriers formed a wall that stretched past Britain's field of vision. The helo gunner stopped firing, motioning them onward. The escort stopped short as a long metal javelin thudded into the earth before them, quivering. It was quickly followed by the popping sound and dancing earth that indicated rounds impact. Britain threw himself backward, knocking Rampart onto the soldier behind him. The three went stumbling. The soldiers in front of him scattered. Leo! Firing their carbines skyward. The gunner on the helo worked the ammunition feeds his minigun with panic speed. The bird circled above them. The basket on its back rocking. Britain's eyes widened as he saw it crammed with small, brown-skinned humanoids. Huge heads topped round bodies, large pointed ears jutting, pinned back by the wind of the giant bird's descent. Garish paint adorned their faces, ragged stripes, handprints, streaky stars. One of them, painted completely white, clung flat to the bird's neck, just behind its head. Most of the creatures in the basket brandished bright metal javelins in their long, thin hands, but at least one held a carbine. One of the creatures emptied a grenade launcher meant to be attached to the underside of a rifle. It shouted something Britain could not hear and fired, the recoil knocking it back into the basket. The grenade detonated way off front, but succeeded in spraying the group with spinning fragments of dirt and rock. One of the escorting soldiers cursed and collapsed, dropping his carbine and grabbing his ankle. Britain spun away, shielding his eyes to the scattering dirt. He looked back at the bird. Red holes blossomed in its wings as bullets tore into it, but it didn't seem to notice. It opened its giant beak in a piercing cry and dove lower. Britain raised his carbine and sighted down it. Rampart slapped the barrel down. What the hell are you doing? Get your ass in the helo! Britain hesitated. The men around him were his captors and enemies, but his instincts rebelled against leading fellow soldiers in the midst of their fight. His muscles responded to the sight of the uniforms to the sound of gunfire, moving his legs to the spot. A cluster of javelins burst from the basket. One of the escorts fell gurgling, impaled from the neck. Bullets plucked two of the squat, brown-skinned creatures shrieking out of the basket. Leo, ladies and gentlemen.
Ariadne's mother. Her name was Ariadne. She was in her early 20s and she sat tilted in her wheelchair, her arms folded up at the elbows and wrists like she was a praying mantis. No matter what happened, she wore an expression of surprise, mouth and hope, eyes wide, nostrils flaring for air. There was a white diaper on the tray of her chair to be used to wipe the drool from her chin. When I first met her, I asked her to tell me about her writing. A short time passed, and then there came a series of breathy and brief high-pitched squeals, like some kind of machine giving a warning. I couldn't make out a word. Her mother, who came with her every week to class, always spoke for her. She told me that Ariadne had been a brilliant writer in high school, had gotten a scholarship to college, and then took ill. I never found out what the disease was. The mother proposed that they sit in the back of the classroom, that the girl dictate to her the essays and stories, and that she would type them for her onto the computer. What could I say? Whenever the girl made noises, I tried to parse out the words, but never could. Not so the mother. She nodded at Ariadne's bird song, typing like mad. And the papers, when they were done, were ingenious and grammatically perfect. One was a Lankhurst ghost story, in which the spirits of the departed, a mother and a daughter, lived a quiet life in an abandoned mansion. By mid-semester, I was certain the girl wasn't actually speaking at all.
The War Prayer by Mark Twain, abridged. It was a time of great and exalting excitement. The country was up in arms, the war was on, and every breast burned the holy fire of patriotism, and the half-dozen rash spirits that ventured to disapprove of the war and cast a doubt upon its righteousness straightway got such a stern and angry warning that for their personal safety's sake, they quickly shrank out of sight and offended no more in that way. Sunday morning came. The church was filled. Then came the long prayer. None could remember the like of it for passionate pleading and moving in beautiful language. The burden of its supplication was that an ever-merciful and benign Father of us all would watch over our noble young soldiers and aid, comfort, and encourage them in their patriotic work. Bless them, shield them in the day of battle and the hour of peril. Bear them in his mighty hand. Make them strong and confident, invincible in the bloody onset. Help them crush the foe. Grant to them and to their flag and country imperishable honor and glory. An aged stranger entered and moved with slow and noiseless step up the main aisle, his eyes fixed upon the minister. The stranger touched his arm, motioned him to step aside, and took his place. I come from the throne bearing a message from Almighty God. He has heard the prayer and will grant it if such be your desire, after I, his messenger, shall have explained to you its import, that is to say, its full import. For it is like unto many prayers of men, in that it asks for more than he who utters it is aware of. Is it one prayer? No, it is two. One uttered, and the other not. Both have reached the ear of him who heareth all supplications, the spoken and the unspoken. Ponder this. Keep it in mind. If you would beseech a blessing upon yourself, beware, lest without intent you invoke a curse upon your neighbor at the same time. You have heard your servant's prayer, the other part of it. I am commissioned by God to put into words the other part of it, that part which the pastor and also you in your hearts fervently pray silently. When you have prayed for victory, you have prayed for many unmentioned results which follow victory. Must follow it. Cannot help but follow it. Upon the listening Spirit of God fell also the unspoken part of the prayer. He commandeth me to put it into words. Listen. Lord our Father, our young patriots, idols of our hearts, go forth into battle. Be thou near them. With them in spirit we also go forth with the sweet peace of our beloved fireside to smite the foe. O Lord our God, help us tear their soldiers to bloody shreds with our shells. Help us to cover their smiling fields with the pale forms of their patriot dead. Help us to drown the thunder of the guns with the shrieks of their wounded writhing in pain. Help us to lay waste their humble homes with a hurricane of fire. Help us to wring the hearts of their unoffending widows with unavailing grief. Help us to turn them out roofless with their little children to wander unfriended in the wastes of their desolated land in rags and hunger and thirst, sports of the sun, flames in summer, and the icy winds of winter, broken in spirit, worn with travail, imploring thee for the refuge of the grave and denied it. For our sakes who adore thee, Lord, blast their hopes, blight their lives, protract their bitter pilgrimage, heavy their steps, water their way with their tears, stain those white snow with the blood of their wounded feet. We ask it in the spirit of love, of him who is the source of love, and who is the ever-faithful refuge and friend of all that is sore and beset, and seek his aid with humble and contrite hearts. Amen. Ye have read it. If ye still desire it, speak. The messenger of the Most High awaits. It was believed afterward that the man was a lunatic, because there was no sense in what he said.
Along his back, the hair has come out in tufts, exposing a mass of sores. He lopes unevenly. On one of his forepaws, the inner toes have been crushed. He has run from a city reduced to stone skeletons and drifting piles of ash, dudgeon tanks, mortar fire, the rifles and farmers desperate for food. For weeks now, he has been moving along the dusty roads. When rain comes, he has curled himself under a tree. Afterward, he has come from hells, and locally on again, not drying the hollows of his paws. Sometimes he has left the road and tried to catch rabbits in the fields, but his damaged paw prevents him from running quickly enough. He has smelled them in their burrows beneath the summer grasses, beneath the poppies and cornflowers, tantalizing, inaccessible. This morning he has smelled something different, pungent like spoiled meat, the smell of enchantment. He has left the road and entered the forest, finding his way through a tangle of briars. He has come to the village, loped up its cobbled streets and through the gates of the palace. His claws click on its stone floor. What does he smell? A fragrance, drifting, indistinct, remembered from when he was a pup. Bacon. There, through that doorway. He lopes into the great hall where breakfast waits in chafing dishes. The eggs are still firm, their yolks plump and yellow, their whites delicately fried. Sausages sit in their own grease. The toast is crisp. He leaves a streak of egg yolk and sausage grease on the tablecloth, which has remained pristine for half a century, and falls asleep in the Queen Dowager's drawing room, in a square of sunlight that has not faded the baroque carpet. He lives happily ever after. Someone has to. As summer passes, he wanders through the palace gardens, digging in flower beds and trying to catch the sleeping fish that float in the ornamental pools. One day he urinates on the side of the tower from which the dark smell emanates to show his disapproval. When he is hungry, he eats from the side of beef hanging in the larder, the sausage and eggs remaining on the breakfast table, or the mice sleeping beneath the harpsichord. In autumn, he chases the leaves falling red and yellow over the lawns and manages to pull a lobster from the kitchen tank, although his teeth can barely crack its hard shell. He never figures out how to extract the canary from its cage. When winter comes, the stone floor sends an ache from his damaged paw, and he sleeps in the king's bed, under velvet covers. When summer comes again, he is too old to run about the garden. He lies in the Queen Dowager's drawing room and dreams of being a pup, of warm hands and a voice that whispered, "What a beautiful dog," and that magical thing called a ball. He dies, his stomach still full with the last of the poached eggs. A proper fairy tale should, perhaps, end here.
The multiple aptitude android worked. Vandeleur collected his fees. His expenses were taken care of. His savings began to mount. As the warm spring of Megaster 5 turned to hot summer, I began investigating farms and properties. It would be possible in a year or two for us to settle down permanently, provided Dallas Brady's demands did not become rapacious. On the first hot day of summer, the android began singing in Dallas Brady's workshop. It hovered over the electric furnace, which, along with the weather, was broiling the shop, and sang an ancient tune that had been popular half a century before. Oh, it's no feat to eat. All wheat, so keep you seat. Eat. fleet, cool and discreet, honey. It sang in a strange, halting voice, and its accomplished fingers were clasped behind its back, writhing in strange rumba all its own. Dallas Brady was surprised. "You happy or something?" she asked. "I must remind you that the pleasure playing in pain syndrome is not incorporated in the android synthesis," I answered. All right, be fleet, cool and discreet, honey." Its fingers stopped their writhing and picked up a heavy pair of tongs. The android poked them into the glowing heart of the furnace, leaning far forward to peer into the lovely heat. "Be careful, you damn fool," Dallas Brady exclaimed. "You want to fall in?" "I must remind you that I am worth $57,000 on the current exchange," I said. "It is forbidden to endanger valuable property." All right, honey." It withdrew a crucible of glowing gold from the electric furnace, turned, capered hideously, sang crazily, and splashed a sluggish goblin of molten gold over Dallas Brady's head. She screamed and collapsed, her hair and clothes flaming, her skin crackling. The android poured again while it capered and sang, be fleet, cool and discreet, honey." It sang and slowly poured the molten gold. Then I left the workshop and rejoined James Vanderloren's hotel suite. The android's charred clothes and squirming fingers warned the owner that something was very much wrong. Vanderloor rushed to Dallas Brady's workshop, stared once, vomited, and fled. I had enough time to pack one bag and raise $900 on portable assets. He took a third-class cabin on the Megaster Queen, which left that morning for Lyra Alpha. He took me with him. He wept and counted his money, and I beat the android again. And the thermometer in Dallas Brady's workshop registered 98.1 degrees, beautifully Fahrenheit.
The island unknown. I have discovered a Victrola on the island. There is no other sign of civilization, just lots of sand and a few rocks and one big palm tree. And the Victrola standing like a sentry beneath the tree. It's one of those cabinet Victrolas, one of the new ones, expensive. I opened the cabinet to see if there were any records, and there were. I put one on, but I didn't understand it. Perhaps because sunstroke and dehydration were setting in, and I was still angry at the captain for declaring me a degenerate and marooning me here. The noises from the Victrola sounded like a particularly enthusiastic and utterly out-of-tune klezmer band. This was not to be my salvation. When I saw the Victrola, I had thought I'd solved whatever metaphysical riddle my marooning posed, and that if I could just find the right record to play, an army of friends would arise from the ocean and carry me back to the ship, patting me on the back and sticking a cigar in my mouth, their own mouths issuing great waves of chortle. But no, the only waves were the briny ones bumping against the beach. "Be quiet!" I screamed at the waves. They would not obey, so I tore the record off the Victrola and threw it into the ocean as a warning. I tried another record, but it was exactly the same. They were all the same. All the same.
each label, trying to divine differences and meanings, but the best I could come up with was that the labels were a deep red purple color I decided should be called maroon. Thus, I had found my own label. The words on the label were not English, nor an alphabet I recognized. The precise, intricate letters looked like some sort of runes, but I know nothing of runes, having spent my few years of education learning to tie 1,000 knots. I had hoped it would get me a wife, but women, I discovered, are more complicated than knots. I became a private investigator, and I roamed the shipyards, and one night I became a stowaway because the divorce racket had grown depressing, and I figured some time on the sea would do me good. I hid in a box of toaster ovens, and then one day a swarm of turtles infested the hold, and a long-repressed terror of animals with shells overtook my senses and sent me screaming to the top deck, where a bevy of salt-scarred sailors tackled me and loved me and made me think I was one of their own. But I was not one of their own, which, had I been more perspicacious, I would have guessed from the army helmet they stuck on my head, because I had seen all the old movies with John Wayne and Randolph Scott, in which people of the land torment people of the sea, and vice versa. And their differences can never be overcome until combat in the last act. But we had no combat out in the empty sea, and the sea was endless, without act breaks or intermissions of any sort. So we had no sacrifice and no reconciliation, and I was the landlubber, and eventually the sailors who had loved me so well and so tenderly fell into a routine of hour after hour and day after day, throwing sand in my face and spitting tobacco through the bullet hole in my steel helmet. Until one day they ran out of sand and tobacco, and they took the helmet back and they tossed me to the island here, without even the grace of a box of toaster ovens, for old time's sake. The Victrola skips. Its needle bounces like a mosquito across the record. I begin to understand the sounds. I begin to hear their words. The history of my life has never been read. A reckless, hard-hearted life I have lived. I left my true love with a fair, broken heart. I left my true love in sorrow and pain. I left my true love to sorrow inside. I hope we all meet in the... No! This is not true. The Victrola tells the wrong story. It lies and lies and lies again. I throw sand across the record, causing it only to skip once more and issue more words I understand. A story I'll tell of a poor rambling soul. He's lost, I've been told, on the island of unknown. The history of life is the history of the dead. I cover the Victrola with sand until there is nothing but a mound in front of me, and the words have turned to soft, distant moans. I lean against the mound and let the sun slash across my skin. I let the dry wind sear my eyes. I wait to burst into fire or fall into dust. I wait. There is movement near my feet. Turtles climb ashore. Lines of them, waves of them, endless numbers. And the sun explodes off the silver toaster ovens on their backs. They pile the toaster ovens around me like an igloo, and then they dig through the sand with their little claws, and uncover the Victrola, and clean off the record, and set the song singing again. I cannot escape the dark prison the turtles have built for me. I cannot destroy the Victrola. I hear the turtles out there singing along and dancing. It must be night now. The turtles sing louder. The sound of the song and their singing echoes across the steel of the toaster ovens. He's lost, I've been told, on the island unknown. He's lost, I've been told, he's lost. It is late now, but the turtles never tire and the Victrola never stops. Listen, can you hear them? Can you hear them? Please, tell me I am not alone.
C'est bon. This has been the Wold Newton Reading Extravaganza. Normally, this happens in Brooklyn, New York. If you would like more information about that, go to WoldNewtonReading.com and sign up for our mailing list. Or you can approach me and sign up for our mailing list. Let's give another round of applause for our readers. And a round of applause for our band. Seriously, buy Brian's books. They're really good. Brian, oh, introduce the band.
This is Adam Matlock on accordion. This is Fabio Pidazzolo on really making impression instruments.
And lastly, let's give a round of applause to our dancer, Leo. Excellent job, Leo. Thank you all very much. Stay tuned for the Kurt Poland Mad Pros competition. Thank you.